Very good. I like where this is headed. I think this actually might work with what our little plan is. Marissa, looking good. Okay, everybody. Yeah, welcome to One-on-One with Coach Blu. Something new we're going to try here, a little bit different than the Zoom meetings that we've had in the past, where we've kind of just done kind of a private thing. This is going to be more public, more open. And what we're hoping to do is to bring and invite individuals who want to jump on here and maybe go over some Q&A, whether it's about recovery, whether it's about addiction, services, mental health, relationship stuff. I'm a licensed substance abuse counselor and a mental health therapist and the founder of Addict to Athlete. And so kind of got some cool things going on here, but we want to drop this experience and kind of pass it on to you guys. And really, so kind of want to open the floor to whoever's feeling like they want to jump on.
We have Ethan Omar from
Awesome.
First. Would you like?
Yeah, so this platform is going to be for you guys, and basically it's a one-on-one thing, and it's being broadcast live on Facebook and on YouTube, and it's in hopes to kind of get some dialogue going here. And so if you're jumping on, that means that you're going to be okay with being in the public eye. And so if you don't want to be, you're going to want to try and jump off real fast. Okay, we first let's see, we're gonna chat with Ethan then. Yeah, is that what we're doing? Yeah, Ethan's up, so let's go ahead and get him unmuted. Ethan, my man, how are you doing, brother?
I am doing very well. How are you doing, Coach Blu?
Doing good, buddy. So how's life out there in Ohio?
Wisconsin.
Dude, I am so sorry, man. I almost doomed you, didn't I?
No, you're all right.
Dude, no one ever talks about Wisconsin. That's awesome, man. So what's happening out there?
Finals week, so that's exciting. I'm very excited to get done with that. I guess I was told to come up with a couple of questions, and what I have is, well, my first question, I guess, would be, when you run a group, and I understand that there are certain individuals who, sorry about that,
Hey, you're fine.
aren't best suited for groups, such as extremely shy people, extremely impulsive people, violent people. What is the determining behavior, I guess, that you can notice, or that you notice?
Absolutely. You know, it's interesting. Groups and groups dynamics are kind of they're the meat and potatoes of any therapeutic, like program. And, there's a guy, his last name is Yalom, who does a bunch of books and stuff. If you're in counseling, you've probably heard of Yalom and all of his group studies and stuff. And really, it kind of starts off with, making sure that the group that you're trying to put together has the goals set, and so like who is going to be a fit and who's not. Now, for instance, in addiction and addiction recovery with the groups that I've always run, I like kind of having like the kind of the ones that kind of dig their heels in, the ones that don't think they need help. And it's fun because, when you get the ones that have a little bit more of a temper and a little bit more of the aggressive kind of personality, I love it, because once you kind of get in and start, tearing away the walls, they become the group leaders and the allies, and really kind of allow the group to feel safe. Because if this guy's gonna battle a little bit and push against, the group facilitator, and they kind of start working through problems and stuff, it kind of shows the buy-in they're going to have. But of course, you don't want to mix violent, behaviors with kind of passive behaviors. And sometimes, you can create that as a group facilitator just by kind of making your group norms and the group rules like very much a forefront of everyone's mind. And so really, it's kind of like, not being afraid to excuse the individuals who just are refusing to follow the rules. And, in order to do that, you've got to be able to have a little bit of some thick skin, so that if they know that they're pushing boundaries, or they're pushing against, the norms, and maybe they're making it an unsafe, emotionally unsafe environment, that you can say, hey man, it's just not going to be a fit for you. We'll see you later. And, sometimes you can turn that behavior right back into, the process of what's going on with the group. Why are you being so defensive? Why are you so, like against us, kind of working on the issues? And a lot of it's like, I don't have time for this. You don't know me, and, blah, blah, blah. But all those behaviors are showing you something. All those behaviors from group members are showing you and telling you a story. And really, I like it because, for me, for anyone who's been in my groups for any kind of long part of, any time of history, they'll know that I'm a very confrontational therapist, and I do what's called control talk with them a lot, which means I want them to know that I'm going to be, in charge. And the funny thing about it is they don't know what's happening. And so I'll be 100% honest with you. There's been times where I've had guys come into my group and they'll be introducing themselves and they'll say, I'm the world's greatest dad. And when I'm high, I'm a great father. And I'm like, really? Because great fathers don't use drugs in front of their kids and don't have their kids taken by the state. And you call yourself a great dad. And that's a title that I, believe that I am. And so what makes you think you're better than me? And Ethan, I'll take them off. I'll make them upset. And the thing about that is, if I can get them in that control talk where they start to reactively listen to me, I know where they're at. And then once I've got them, I know exactly what communicative style they're in. I can then shift them and move them. And I can say, well, look, all that stuff got you here. But if you want to be an amazing father, are you willing to listen to the group? Are you willing to do the work? Are you wanting to build a better relationship so that you can wear that label of amazing father? And they're so happy to not be fighting with me anymore that they turn into like the putty. They turn into like the, yes, I do. And they don't really know what's happening because communication is more of an art than it is something that we do. And so, that's just one of the techniques that I use to kind of gauge where the group's, going to be and who's going to be able to respond to that. And there's been times when I've pushed that too far and it's backfired. And so you got to be real cautious with it. Something you got to make sure that you get fluent with. But really I use that to my advantage. And what's cool about it is, they're done fighting and you move from control talk to search talk using open-ended questions, and you get them talking about stuff before they even realize it's happening. And that's, I think, where that therapeutic relationship develops. But does that answer your question a little bit about how to gauge and maybe how to kind of like pick the right ones for the right group?
I'm going to repeat back to you the gist of what you said, just so I can make sure I understood you.
Yeah.
It would be acceptable to, bring somebody in the group and see how they behave in the group before saying, sometimes you bring them into the group, see how they behave in the group. And if they aren't a fit, you excuse them, or you see how they deal with confrontation, like confrontational talk, to figure out whether or not they're really trying to help themselves.
Yeah,
Kind of.
And there's times, Ethan, you're spot on, but there's times when I allow silence to just be okay, and not force people into that, because sometimes people do a lot more listening and can gain more than doing a ton of talking. And so we usually you leave the talking stuff, especially for new beginners who are like, men specifically, men don't like talking about emotions. And so they usually kind of put up the front and kind of beat their chest, the alpha males. And so they tend to sit back, and until they realize that it's safe and that they're okay to talk, they'll hold back. And so I don't make that a key point of like dragging their story out of them. So really it goes over just kind of knowing what goal and what solutions you want to have in your group, and then just kind of allowing the group to take over. The best groups happen when you start getting allies and people that kind of, know your style, and then they run the group themselves. You're there as a facilitator, just kind of like leading the music, and they're kind of rolling. So you'll get a feel for it once you have a few experiences, and there'll be times when they'll push you as the facilitator and they'll kind of, drag you through the mud a little bit. But just know they're doing it because you're there, not because they're trying to really harm you. It's like these guys have, especially in addiction recovery, they've been hurt and abandoned and beaten, and they're downtrodden. And so they want to make sure that you have the capacity to kind of carry their pain too. And so, I don't take things personally. It takes a lot to offend me. And so when they start getting, aggressive, especially with females, when females start getting aggressive with me and start calling me every name in the book, I kind of welcome that, because I'm a safe person for them to kind of vent on, because I'm not going to retaliate, if that makes sense. I'm going to allow them to kind of tell me where the bear poops, and then I'm going to explain to them the more excellent way to do it. And that's just so that they can feel comfortable and have a safe confrontation with someone who's not going to be aggressive with them. And so it's a delicate dance, brother. It really is, but it's a good question.
No, thank you very much for answering that. That's
You bet, man.
a lot to think about.
It's cool. Yeah. And for those of you guys that don't know, Ethan is one of our certified coaches. And so I can't wait to see all the stuff you're going to start producing out there, man.
I'm very excited. Thank you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Cool. Well, all right. Marissa, are you moving? Hmm? All right. Well, yeah, I told Ethan, thank you. Absolutely.
Donel is up next, and we have a few others.
All right. Donell's up next. Leave it to Donell. She's going to make me cry, isn't she? Absolutely. Okay, Donell, you want to jump in here? Let's get you unmuted.
Mark calling arson, Mark calling arson. Can you hear me?
Yeah, gotcha. You betcha.
All right. So when I conversed briefly with Marissa, she said that we could utilize this opportunity to talk about something we're struggling with, not necessarily just like questions regarding our groups or facilitating or whatever, right?
And if you feel comfortable,
So-
Donell, you can turn your camera on
Okay.
if you want to.
Okay. So here's the thing. And I was actually going to bring this up to you in like a session,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like this is probably something that other people are probably struggling with as well. And so I really kind of want to bring it up in this format. I'm nervous because it's really personal. So I'm a little shaky, but
And you're live on Facebook, you know that. So you're going to be
I
helping
do know that.
you're going to be
I do
helping
know
lots
that.
of people. So yeah, go right ahead, whatever you feel.
All right. So, and I just kind of threw Michael on the spot about this, but so
Michael's like, "Hey, wait a second."
yeah. So we kind of, Michael and I have been struggling lately with communication, which is a big, it's always been an issue for us, but
Yeah, that's what we we're just talking about with Ethan. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So so the thing is that when I think when I was in my addiction, there was no real controversy. There was no conflict between us because I was always in the guilty role, and he was always kind of in the like, I forgive you, it's okay kind of role. You know what I mean? Our roles were very well defined. And so I think the last 2 years that I was in recovery, we both were so busy with Addict Artist and everything that it was kind of, it just kind of went by the wayside. It was like, okay, this new thing that we're kind of struggling and kind of getting through, but we're busy all the time.
Yeah.
So now that we're quarantined, and not quite so busy, and, coming out of my relapse of, 3 months ago. So what we're struggling with, I think, is like we have these days where it's just a constant back and forth of like, okay, so it'll start like in the morning, we'll kind of have this little argument or whatever, and it'll become, I typically get on the defensive, and then he gets, like he'll apologize or whatever. It's just kind of crazy, but it just goes back and forth all day long, all day long, all day long. And I don't know how to kind of navigate through the new definition of what our roles are now, because I don't want to be in that guilty place anymore, because I'm not there. I'm not doing the things that I did before. And then conversely, Michael doesn't have to be that kind of person who's playing the martyr all the time. I mean, he's the good guy who's like, forgiving me for what I've done and taking care of me, and do you just see what I'm saying?
I do.
And
absolutely.
So it's, how do we find a way to kind of be able to define those new roles that I can be independent and he can be independent, and we can still, be able to kind of develop that new relationship together, but set those habitual roles aside from, what we had always done for our whole marriage.
Exactly. So you're bringing up some really good points, and I think part of what you're bringing up, it does begin to kind of like you know, it's about these roles that you're trying to establish, right? You're trying to figure out, okay, so where do I belong now that we have these preset kind of like roles that we played. And so before it was kind of like, yeah, you were in your addiction and kind of hiding from life. And, you know, Michael was kind of at the forefront and kind of just trying to keep you out because he loves you. And so the thing that happens, I think, a lot when people get out of treatment is they don't realize how much really changes. And so if you go home trying to establish and be put in that same role, it will never work because you've changed so much. And so what's probably happening is you guys are kind of pendulum kind of swinging back into that paradigm of like, you're the sick one, I'm the healthy one, and you're like, but I'm healthy, but I should be in this role. And Michael's like, no, I don't think you're that sick anymore, but I want you to come up out of that hole. But you're like, I don't know if I should because, you know, this is what I'm used to. And so really I can see that the breakdown start to happen in that. It's like this whole thing. And although Michael was very much a part of your recovery, you know, there's a lot. I mean, you are on accelerated track. You are 24/7 counseling, therapy, groups, everything. And Michael just had twice a week. And so, you know, he's still trying to catch up to you. You're light years ahead of him on an emotional therapeutic like plateau. Does that make sense? So you're way ahead. And so it makes sense why communication starts to break down. So you start looking at, okay, again, the why. Where's it coming from? First and foremost, you've got to talk about this kind of stuff without feeling like you know, slide into the victim mentality, you know, not trying to pick up on the scarcity or the blaming or all this, but it's a lot of accountability, right? The agent type stuff, like, you know, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I'm seeing, give me your thoughts. There's so much that's changed, and you're still kind of walking on pins and needles because you're still thinking, but what if you know, what if I do something wrong? What if I say something wrong? What will he still love me? Be cautious not to kind of do that, you know, kind of like, you know, subconsciously about like pushing away at the same time trying to bring in. So I say it begins and ends with core communication. You've heard me say this a million times, right? And so if you guys are getting in arguments and stuff and things are starting to feel like they're petty arguments and stuff, we got to find out where that's coming from. What are you feeling like? Where's this distress coming? Why is the spite talk starting to kind of ramp up a little bit, right? Because if you remember, control talk has two subcategories. There's fight talk and there's spite talk. Fight talk is like, I'm taking the gloves off, we're going to start boxing, you know, and you did this to me and you said that and you're doing this and you're a horrible person. Whereas spite talks like, you know, well, I like the old you better. What's, you know, where's that person? And I liked it when you didn't do this. And why are you always so opinionated now? And that these pokes and these pokes and these pokes. And so when you're spite talking, what we look for is a little bit of reaction. And so you got to look yourself in the mirror, Donel, and be very self-aware. Do you feel like you're provoking anything with Michael because you're thinking, this is too good to be true? Why does he care about me so much? And if things are going so good, something has to go wrong. And so maybe even subconsciously, are you throwing some kindling in the fire? Because Michael's not going to do that to you. He's going to be there for you. And I know you feel bad for what's happened and stuff, but he chose you for a reason. He chose that heart of you for a reason. And so, you know, self-sabotage is a very real thing. And I think a lot of it comes down to being okay in your own skin, you know, and just being okay. And, you know, the search talk is where it's at. It's reflective listening. It's being in the moment with him and being able to like calm the fears and just let him hold you and hug you and be like, I love you despite that. See, the cool thing about relationships is that, you know, when your spouse or your significant other knows everything there is to know about you, the good and the bad, and they're like, I love you despite all that stuff. And because of all that stuff, it's a weird feeling because you're thinking, I've never had this before. And if it's going good, something has to go wrong. So we start to stir the pot a little bit. But I really think it starts with kind of analyzing our own selves. You know, when Marissa and I get in arguments, the first thing we do is kind of evaluate what's really going on here. How much of this is my fault? And then being accountable to it. So we don't slip into that victim mentality. You know, but I think if you being aware of it is a big deal because it's a relationship worth saving.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I don't know. What are you thinking? I mean, you've heard me on my pedestal many times. What are you
Right.
thinking?
Well, I think you're 100% right. And I, as you were saying that, you know, my poking and my stirring the pot, I think you're right. I think being in my relapse, you know, I still haven't gotten over blaming myself for that. And until I do, you know, it's going to kind of continue. And so the reason that the defensiveness comes in is because I'm back there and that's not my truth anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's where the conflict comes in. And so I'm like, feel like I'm clawing my way back up, even though it's self-imposed, you know, because I'm the one that's tearing myself up over my relapse and whatever. But so it's self-imposed, but it's like, no, I have a point to prove, you know, I'm not that person anymore. And so it comes out as, you know, what I wanted to come out is I'm woman, hear me roar. I've done all of these amazing things and I can stand tall in that, in my confidence in what I've done in my recovery. But what it's coming out as is as, you know, F you or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Not really. I would never tell Michael.
Yeah, I know that thing.
You know,
That sounds very.
but
That sounds very not like you. But I get where you're coming from. Emotionally, it's kind of what you're screaming.
Right.
And
It
trust
just
me.
it comes out
Mhm.
as a defensive, like, you know, I'm not going to be that cowering person who feels like, well, I'm an addict and I did this and I, you know, did that, and so, you know, I have to be this person with no voice, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
so
that's not
now
you.
I
That's not
found
you.
that voice.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I've not learned how to, like, it's like I've found my sea legs, but I've not learned how to swim with them yet. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
I can't find a way to do it diplomatically and respectfully. I have to make sure that he knows that I have that voice. And I just don't know, because I never have, you know, like I've never
It's
had
still
the
new.
opportunity to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still
But,
new. And that's the thing is
mhm.
both of you two have amazing voices when it comes to sharing, you know, love and compassion and service and just, you know, gratitude through and through. And so really you're a lot closer to being on the same page than you think you are. But again, I know you, and most people in your situation start to self-sabotage because they think, do I deserve this? And
Right.
you know, yeah, you do. And I know that there's some people out there that you know that have coached that no, you don't deserve anything. And I beg to differ. You do
Right.
deserve to be happy and to create a lifestyle that's going to be sober and supportive and loving and caring. And that's what you guys have. And so I also know that still, Donel is still very new, and you know, it's so fresh, and there's still so many things that could potentially go wrong. But because you have the tools that you have, you're going to be able to build through it. So I got you. I get where you're coming from.
I guess my biggest question, because like I said, I mean, it's not like we're fighting, you know, we're at each other's throats. That's not what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like we just have those days where we cannot get out of that cycle. And how do we let, like, if the day starts off with, you know, a rift between us, how do we put that behind us and be able to move forward and enjoy the day together and
Mm-hmm.
not just constantly go back and forth all day long, you know, and
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Do
know,
you know
just as we bury one hatchet, another one flies up all day
exactly?
long.
You know what Marissa and I used to say, and it's funny because you know the Addict to Athlete podcast is in congruence with Radio Ronin, and Jimmy Chunga, who is a radio personality who now is over the podcast of Radio Ronin, and we take his advice that we heard years ago, and it was, go eat some pie. And we used to do that. We say, we need to go get some pie. So we go get some apple pie or something, or like a, you know, one of those Hostess things and stuff. And so it's like, you know, you're in traffic, you're freaking out, you're mad, just eat some pie. And so we've made that kind of like our code word when we're like really kind of getting bubbled up, which is, I think I need to go have some pie. And then we just slow down and enjoy the apple pie and enjoy the, you know, the turnovers, and then we just let each other have space. And it's okay to have space, you know. You don't have to fix everything right in the moment. Sometimes, you know, sometimes going to bed angry is okay, because you wake up tomorrow and you're like, okay, let me reevaluate this. You know, it's funny, you've been in arguments and you've walked away prematurely, and then you thought, man, I wish I would have said this. And, that's what it is. So it's okay to take some time out, take a knee, take time out and eat some pie. It's kind of funny. It's our code word now. It's kind of funny. We laugh at it now because we can't do that because we're on diets now, but it's what we do. I'm with you. It's hard.
All right.
It's hard. So well done, Donel. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Marissa, who was our MC, is just rocking it. Allie's up next. Okay, I'll get her in here. I'll go to speaker mode for a second. All right. There she goes. Let's see if we can get her off of mute. There we go. All right. I shouldn't tinker around too much because you're the producer down there. I probably just messed things up. Allie.
Hello.
How are you?
I am good.
Awesome. Welcome to One-on-One with Coach Blu. This is an interesting thing. We got all kinds of stuff going on behind the scenes you guys can't see. We're kind of amazed this is even working. Nonetheless, what can I do for you? You got Coach Blu's attention.
Okay, Coach Blu, I'm a family member of a recovering addict. And so my question for you is how to show up for him and not be controlling. And, we're trying to rebuild our relationship. And it just seems like sometimes he just shuts me out. And I think, I don't really know what that's about, but trying to see what conversations or how I could show up for him without being controlling or pushy and let him own his own power, but also maybe assist him in opening up. Because I think sometimes, people that are close to someone that uses, we see that they might be in trouble before they see that they might be in trouble and want to step in and assist them to, maybe a different road or different choices.
Yeah.
And so that's my question for you.
Yeah, you know what, that makes perfect sense. And the neat thing about this is that it happens so often where you have a loved one who is now, come out of treatment or come out of jail or been in a situation and now they're back kind of involved in your life and you're thinking, how much can I really do for them without being enabling or without kind of like taking over, because you want them to succeed. I mean, it makes sense, right? You don't want them to hurt anymore, but it's one of those things where how do you do it, from afar, by showing like that you're there, but again, without like overdoing it and without over like correcting the behavior to where they don't learn anything and they kind of rely on you. And part of that too is to make your boundaries very clear from the beginning, which I think that you've been able to do. And a lot of it, I think, stems from us being able to kind of like recognize why do I feel the need to have to kind of, tear away the cocoon from him coming out of the chrysalis and try to spread his wings. And a lot of it is because I think that we don't want them to slip anymore. Our heart breaks for them. I mean, back in the day, do you remember the counsel used to be given about the tough love stuff? You remember getting that lecture from people? This tough loves, kick them out, right? Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Did it ever sit well with you at all?
No,
Well,
that doesn't seem like love,
tell
and that
me
doesn't
why.
seem like support. Yeah, it doesn't
Exactly.
seem like
It's
love
not.
or support. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think gone are those days because what they realize is that it doesn't work. But you've got to keep yourself safe at the same time, trying to give him, the room to grow. At the end of the day, he's going to make his own decisions. And so first is, in any kind of situation, and for anyone that's been in the rooms for any length of time, they've always heard the analogy, it's like you're on a plane and if your oxygen mask falls down, put yours on first before you put anyone else's on. And, a mother's instinct obviously is to get your kids, breathing the oxygen before you do yours. But if you pass out, then you're no good to anybody. And so are you in a place by which you feel comfortable in your own life, with your own relationships, your own careers, to be able to give, the attention or maybe even the service that might be needed? And if you can answer yes, then you boil down to, do you have the capacity to be able to do this? Meaning, do you have what he needs? And this is kind of a crazy thing. We interviewed a doctor several months ago on the podcast, and he talked about the power of capacity. And I thought, that is really neat. I never realized that. He spoke about how he and his friend, when they were youth, children, were out swimming in the ocean, and he got kind of carried away and he went too far and got caught in the undertow and the undercurrent. And he started, pushing him under and popping him up. And he was just doing all he could to swim back. And he says, every time I'd come up to gasping for air. I could see my buddy, my friend, running along the shore of the beach, like looking at me and then running, and he'd go back under, and he's like, I had to make a deal with God that it was like, if I make it through this, man, I'm living straight and narrow. And by the grace of God, he washed back up to the shore and just beat to heck. And he said to his friend, he's like, what were you doing? And he's like, I didn't know what to do. I saw you pop up and I knew you needed help, but I couldn't go out there and get you. I couldn't swim out to get you because I don't have, enough strength in me. I was tired too from trying to get out of that. And so what he's saying is, I didn't have the capacity in me to swim out to get you. She says, well, where were you going? And he says, every time he went under, he started to book it to the lifeguards tower because he's like, if I could see you, I knew you're okay. And this poor kid on the beach running back and forth. And I think that's probably a lot like what we deal with in your situation, if I'm hearing you right. It's like you want to get out there and do that, but there's only so much you can do. And you can give him the money and you can give him the rooms to stay and stuff, but really, that if you do that too much, then he's going to drown. And so it's like, what do you have the capacity for? Is it to give him, to go buy him groceries every now and then? Is it to go to pick him up and to take him to treatment? Or is it, to give him a phone call or a text message, say, hey, I'm thinking about you. And that capacity is all you can give. And you can't go past that because you'll drown too. And the thing you don't want to do is love them to death, right? And so I think you have to gauge what your capacity is in order to be able to like say, I can give you this much, because maybe your capacity is to do it all. And maybe you can do that, but I think I know you a little better, and you can't, because you have your own life, you have your own relationships, you have your own career. And so really showing him by example about what you can and can't do is a big deal. Do you know what your capacity is and kind of what you're able to do and what you're willing to do?
Yes, I've definitely found that. And so that is working for me. And just, seeing him fight for his sobriety and doing well, it feels really good. And it is that, I've learned a lot from you and stepping back and letting him find his path and just knowing that I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a big deal. There's more probably that you do just by kind of like giving him the pats on the back and recognizing him and seeing him than you'll ever know, because adult children who grow up in families where relationships with parents dissolve because of addictions or whatnot, myself included, it's hard when the one thing that I would love to have happen would be for my mom to call me and be like, Blue, you're doing good. I'm proud of you, because it's just never going to happen. And so even as an adult, as a 4-year-old guy here, I'm like, I would love to have that happen, but it's not. And so you may not realize how much and how important even that is that you're doing. And so it's a big deal. And I know where your heart's at, and he does too, and you celebrate the victories and you counsel during the losses. And I think that's something you do very eloquently. I know that about you. I mean, you've sacrificed a lot, and I think he knows it.
thank you.
It's a big one. You bring up a very good point. There's a lot of people out here that needs to hear this. And I think that you are one that definitely could lend some supportive ears. I know you.
Thanks, Coach Blu.
You're welcome. Absolutely. So, again, guys, this is just kind of an open discussion, open topic. It's for you guys to kind of jump on and just ask questions and maybe, maybe even counsel the viewers too that are going to be seeing this, because, your questions are probably questions that other people have too. So don't hold back.
Russell is up next.
Russell's coming up next. All right. You're going to cue him up.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Russell, when you jump online, brother, just unmute yourself and we'll get you rolling. There's Russell. Shows a little bit of a learning curve with Zoom. It's kind of funny. Kind of like it. All right, my man. If you want, you can turn your camera on, unless you got bad hair day, and then we'll totally understand. There he is.
Hey, Blue, how you been, brother?
I am good, man. It's good to see you. Last time I saw you, I didn't know if you had COVID-19 or if you were, on your deathbed. So it's good to see you're kicking.
Yeah, I was pretty freaking miserable that day, man.
That's
We've missed
wild.
you over at Liberty.
I've missed you guys too. It's been wild. You guys are in good hands, though. Mark knows.
Yeah,
what
we
he's
are.
doing.
We are.
Absolutely.
Hey, I went out and got a membership at Vasa Fitness the other day, and I wanted to get in touch with you just briefly to see if maybe sometime I could give you a call. I've still got your number, and we could maybe set up a workout plan for me.
Absolutely, man. I would be more than happy to do that. And the cool thing too is Addict to Athlete has a online app. If you have Android and or iPhone, we have
Okay.
our own. It's called PT training, and it's Addict to Athlete based. So yeah,
Okay.
it's I think there's a few tiers. One of them costs a little bit, but most of them I think are pretty liberal. And so if you feel like you want to jump on there and take a peek, we have one of our certified coaches name's Tim, and Tim, I just talked to him yesterday. He's ready to rock. He's helping people kind of get up and moving, and he's not only a certified coach, but he's also a personal trainer, certified personal trainer, and a licensed,
Okay.
he's a SUDSI. So man, this guy's he does everything. So Tim's awesome, but we do have that. But I would be more than happy to sit down with you, brother, and come up with a plan because I know that's something that you wanted to do.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Awesome. So you've been doing the sober living thing. Are you feeling stronger? You feeling better?
Yeah, I'm over in Pivot Point now. I ended up having a little bit of a relapse smoking marijuana for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my treatment because I lost my insurance, so I couldn't go to Liberty for a little while. And then with this whole COVID thing, I hadn't been working, so fell into some old ways. But with Mark and Roger's help over at Liberty, I've gotten everything back on track. So
It's good, man. You're in good hands. Those guys got big hearts, and so I think that's kind of it's cool if you're willing to do the work. They're willing to support you. So that is awesome, man. And so I
yeah,
imagine that work's probably been a little bit struggle for you too. I mean, you're the guy that sets
yeah,
all the cool stuff up and takes it all down. So with the COVID stuff, you've probably been a little bored, huh?
yeah. I've definitely been bored. There's definitely no concerts or anything like that going on. All public events were the first things to close down. I promise they'll be the last thing to open back up.
Man,
But
and that hurts because we need it so bad. We really
yeah,
do need it.
yeah, we definitely do. One of the roommates works for a moving company. I actually just had an interview with them today, so fingers
Nice.
crossed.
That's cool, man. I was talking to a guy today on our podcast. Our upcoming podcast is going to be amazing. It's a gentleman by the name of Tim Ryan, and he is a professional barefoot skier. And he and his wife Jennifer, they were on the podcast today, and some of his story reminded me of you. And so you probably should check this podcast coming out next Monday. It's going to be powerful. He's a neat man, and apparently, I had no idea, but this guy's connected in the recovery world like no one else. And so let's see if we can get him down to Lake Powell and have like a little Addict to Athlete retreat or something one of these days. Have everyone learn how to barefoot ski with this guy. But his story reminded me of you, just kind of this desire to want to do better and just kind of feeling like you're sinking. So I was like, it's funny to see you on here today because I was thinking about you today. That's funny.
Cool, man. Cool. What is
Good
this?
on you.
Where's
This
this
is gonna be
podcast at?
So it's on we got ourselves on Spotify, on iTunes. You just go on there and jump on and Google Addict to Athlete, and it'll pop up. It's pretty rad, man. We got some good stuff. We got a lot of good guests coming on. We've had Randy Grimes, who's the center for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we've got some neat people coming down the pipeline. A lot of professional athletes that are trying to get their
Nice.
word out. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be cool. So
Yeah, I'd
check
like
him
to
out,
do it.
man. You'll like Tim's podcast. It reminded me a lot of you.
Cool. I'd like to go down to Lake Powell with you guys too.
Well, we're gonna have big plans coming up, man. Big plans. So stay tuned.
Nice,
man.
nice.
Stay tuned. We're here for you. Yeah, give me a call though. Give me a holler. I'll be more than happy to help
will
you.
do. Thank you, Blue.
My pleasure, brother. So athletes, that's kind of what we're doing here today. We still got some time left. So I don't know who's up next or who wants to chat, but this is just a platform where it's just a one-on-one. You come in and take a knee. We have a chat. Maybe help motivate or maybe help strengthen if you're having a little bit of a dilemma in life. Like I said, it could be anything you want to chat about. We talked a lot about communication tonight, which is kind of a cool thing because it's communication in addiction recovery is kind of wild because you ever notice how you've made promises over and over and over again and people get sick of them. They're like, yeah, man, put your money where your mouth is and stuff. And then when you kind of turn that table, you turn that corner and you start doing like some positive stuff, like they're like waiting for it to fail, or they're waiting for you to kind of take a knee. And I think communication is a big thing because, it's something that we don't really realize how important it is. It's an art. It's not something that we do. And I've talked about this many times with the 4 styles, small talk and control talk and search talk and straight talk. And the way that you kind of can gauge this kind of stuff is really kind of how you're reacting and how you're feeling. If you're ever talking to somebody and you're starting to get hot under the collar, you know that you're in control talk, and you know that you're getting kind of beat up a little bit. And the cool thing about that is once you're able to kind of like realize that you can move people simply by asking open-ended questions. Like, seems like you're kind of aggressive or upset with this, and I hope that nothing I said is kind of making you upset, but did I say something that's kind of making you feel that way? And once you do that, you're in that search talk mode, they have to come down with you. They can't stay angry and upset because you're taking the wind out of their sails. And so it's kind of a cool thing when you kind of bridge those gaps. I love discovering kind of what it can do. And people have said that, communication or that money is the root of all relationship and marital problems. And I beg to differ. I think it's communication, because if you can communicate well, then you'd know about the financial turbulence that are ahead, or you'd know where things are going. And so really being aware of kind of like how that dialogue goes, it's so crucial. And we have videos and podcasts. And if you ever feel like anybody out there in viewership land needs a little bit more, you can contact me and set up some one-on-one time to do a little bit more in-depth therapy if needs be. But I love working with couples and families on communication, because once you establish that, you can really get in tune. And like Donel was talking about, the one thing you don't want to do is try to always be right. When we try to play that victim card and we slide over to that paradigm, and we try to look at how, people are just out to get us, and that we need to be rescued, and that we live in a world of scarcity where we just don't have enough, it's easy to kind of break down and not feel like you're making any movements. But once you realize that you can get yourself out of that paradigm and move out of the victim mentality and get into what we call the agent column, right? Become an agent of sobriety. You can stop, blaming and start taking accountability. Accountability is probably one of the biggest, I think, resources and assets you can have when you're early in recovery. Taking accountability for your own actions, for your own experiences, and for your own, shortcomings are huge. And a lot of us don't like to do that, because if we start getting like completely accountable, we stop like having to have things to blame anymore. And I love it, because there was a time when I was working in treatment, and there was a coworker of mine who had as a client years ago, and she'd had a little bit of an oversight and made a medication error with one of the clients. And it was a big deal, but wasn't a huge deal. And so, when we discovered it and stuff, and we were kind of like, putting our feelers out there to find out what happened and who had made the mistake so we could correct it, before we could even do anything, this client, this former client, and now, mentor and staff I'm working with, raised her hand and said, "Hey, that was me. That was my bad." And I remember being like so just overwhelmed with like the courage that it took for her to do that, and how cool it was to see the contrast of where she was, 5, 7, 8 years ago when I had her as a client versus now as she was a colleague of mine. And I thought that is the coolest thing ever, that accountability that she took, even though she had done something wrong. And I think sometimes we're afraid of doing that because we're afraid of the consequences, right? We're afraid that if we raise our hand and kind of tattle on ourselves, that the repercussions will be you're fired, or, you don't get to be, part of this industry anymore. And it's not the case. And in fact, I think that, positions and jobs you're in when you're accountable, and if you end up getting let go, it's probably not the company you want to be with. And so I've always been kind of enamored by that one principle of blaming versus accountability. Because it's easy, early in my therapeutic endeavors, as I was a sudsy back in 2000, I remember talking to a parent once, and my buddy, his name was Derek, who lost his life due to addiction a couple years ago, who trained me how to be a substance abuse counselor. He talked about that accountability factor with the youth. And I used to kind of think that, man, I think that parents are the cause of all their kids' garbage. And I was kind of in that mindset until I realized how much accountability we have to be responsible for. And I remember talking to a parent once who I kind of thought that was the case. And then I realized that no, I guess these are independent thinkers. And although everything was laid out for this individual, the parents did the best they could. And it kind of made me take a step back and reevaluate kind of like how we should look at blaming people for anything and being accountable. And the parents were very accountable when I brought this up with them. I said, yeah, we've dropped the ball on a few things, but it was not the cause of the addiction. And so I really do think that this is kind of a cool thing.
We have an online question.
We have an online question. All right.
What about surgeries and recovery? I just had my tonsils out, going in for a knee surgery next. The narcotic pain pills, post-surgery depression, immobility to move, stuck in your head and not being able to work out, to shake the jitters. What do I need to do with that?
It's a great question. That's something that happens quite often. And it's, and specifically, if you guys notice that these things typically happen like early on in recovery where you still kind of feel like you're on that fence to teeter. Now, the number one thing that I would say is that we need to make sure that you have a good support system around you. That is going to be the most crucial aspect of it all. To be able to have people that will be not only be able to check up on you, but also be able to talk about the hard stuff. Because the things you don't want to do is like refuse some of the stuff when you need it. Because I'm a firm believer that, although we got to be cautious, I think that the pain makes us do stupid things too. And so if we're in too much pain and we feel like we can't get that relieved, we're going to end up doing dumb things. And so I would say be accountable to it. We have an athlete, athlete Copeland, who talked about this too, about being very aware and in tune with how much he could take and how much and when, and became kind of like almost like hyper focused on making sure that everyone knew that it was coming up, that it was happening, and that it was on its other side. To be able to talk about it if you're using it and you're starting to feel like, man, this is feeling kind of good. It doesn't mean that you've relapsed. It means that your mind's waking back up to it. And then to be able to gauge the stress level, the anticipation of the surgery and the fear, and really kind of, getting it played out there. If you have a sponsor, to get them online, to jump on places like Addict to Athlete on our Facebook page and to post about it. Because the more eyes you have on the situation, the less likely you're going to be able to slip in secret. Because even if it ended up in a full-blown relapse, we'd know where it came from and we'd be able to help you faster if we were aware of it. So the fact that you even asked that question is huge. And not being able to run and do those kind of things, it's a big deal. Right now, one of our mentors and coaches, his name's David Clark. He is an amazing man. He's an author, he's an ultra athlete. He was doing an audio book of his latest book just about a week ago. And then boom, out of nowhere, his legs started going numb. He found out he had like 5 compact compressed discs in his back. I mean, this is an ultra athlete who's ran Badwater 180 or 135 miles and biked thousands of miles. And this amazing athlete is now just, it just laid out in a bed and having emergency surgery. And his mindset is such that he says, what am I supposed to learn here? A couple of years ago when he was training to do an MMA fight, he was just doing everything he should have been doing and snapped his Achilles tendon. I can think of no greater pain, maybe 5 bulging discs and stuff, but he hit the deck. And I remember his first post was, well, I guess that plan's kind of out the window. I wonder what's going to come next. And it was this positive kind of look. And it was kind of like him being able to, dare I say, enjoy his suffering, which is a weird thing because we're always going to have the suffering in some way, shape, or form to go against what's going to keep us, quote unquote, happy. But his mindset was such that I'm going to use this for something, and I'm not going to focus on the bad stuff. I'm going to have faith in my progression and not stay stuck in fear. And so that's the other component to that question, I guess, is walk through it with faith, knowing that you're going to have these surgeries and these things to get better and to get stronger so that you can return to the peak of your game and not the fear of the what if I start to use, again, I get caught back up into it. You burn the same calories if you're going to be a fear monger or if you're going to practice faith, because really when you boil it down, it's the exact same thing. And so how about default to something that's more positive with the faith aspect and leave the fear for something else, because there's plenty of stuff out there to be afraid of. So I would say get your circle up, get your friends going, get your home teams established, do some shout outs, get posting about it, talk about it, recruit some people to check in on you, and then keep that faith and avoid the fear and to see what you're supposed to learn. God's going to be teaching you something. Listen to what he's saying, because you're going into surgery, you get to be somewhere for someone in a line of service that you're not even recognizing yet. So it makes a lot of sense. It's a big one. It's kind of a scary one too. But the biggest thing you can do, get your team together, get your resources together. And if you need someone to distribute it and to hold it, please do, but again, pain can make us do stupid things. If you've ever seen the movie Castaway and you watch Tom Hanks knock a tooth out of his face with a flipping ice skate, you know what pain can do to people. And so, don't get yourself to a situation where you're so against it that you kind of live a world in pain. Just know that there's help out there. And because you've already kind of raised the flag, you've got a leg up on it more than you might think you do. So that's a good question. And it happens a lot. It happens an awful lot. I hate to see people that struggle in pain because they're afraid of that. But I also understand the fear behind it. But flip the coin, have faith in it instead of fear, and see what happens. It's an interesting thing. We'll have to talk about the victim and agents thing sometime. It's a little paradigm shift that I've kind of grown accustomed to help people stay out of the victim of addiction and become an agent of sobriety by doing things like moving fear to faith and being, instead of blaming it, being accountable and knowing that no one's going to come rescue us. Like Allie was talking about, we don't want to rescue her son. We do what it takes. He's going to do what it takes to stay clean. The troops aren't coming. We're the troops, that kind of stuff. So I really think that that's a great question. But really, you guys, this is something we're going to do more often. And as it gets probably put out there and a little bit more like out there, I think we'll have more people jumping on. So now's your time to get unadulterated time with Coach Blu, and like I said, I don't have all the answers, but we can find it together.
So Selena has a question.
Selena's got a question.
I've switched my roles. My sister is dealing with a daughter with addiction. She took care of me. Now I'm stressed being on the new end.
Yeah, that's an interesting one too. When roles get reversed, right? It's like, okay, Tag, your turn, you're it. Selena, that makes a lot of sense too. I think that when that happens, we also got to get back to that capacity experience that we were talking about with Allie. You got to know what your capacity level is, because although you've got some time under your belt now and you are able and willing to help, you got to be cautious and be able to know where that capacity level ends. But really, you to a certain extent, be humble that you're in a position now by which you can serve like that, to where you have a deeper insight. Thus, the reason you guys Step 12 is so amazing, carrying the message to the addict who still suffers. We talk about it in terms of, turning the mess into a message by you going out and kind of being a little bit more, and again, we're going to use terms that no one likes, being a little bit more proud of what you're accomplishing and be able to flex your muscle a little bit. Because really, it's what kind of keeps us in a mindset of service and progression, which is being able to give back. Know your limits, know what you can and can't do. The one thing that everybody that's watching this, that everyone that's been, kind of in the attendee, queue, what you all have in common is that in one way, shape, or form, you have all been in a situation by which you've been the junior therapist for people. You've been the sounding board. You've been the peacemaker. You are the junior therapist of your families. And you all have that in common. And it's weird. Why do we have that in common? Because you have the capacity to carry the pain. It's such an interesting paradigm. And it's kind of funny because you start realizing how big your hearts are. And I am a firm believer that you use, because that pain and that level of emotions that you're carrying for everything and everyone becomes so heavy, and yours kicks in, you collapse. Thus the reason you find addiction. It's why you find the substance that works for you. And so I'm a firm believer that people who use and have addiction in their past, they're not weak people. They are the strongest people that walk the face of the earth, because of how much capacity to pain you can carry. And so Selena, it's the same thing. Don't take on too much that you can't carry, but be able to have the capacity to say, I can do this, 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 and this, but I can't and I won't do that. So that's a good question too. I think that there's a lot to that. Donel, did you have something real quick?
Actually, I did, but I'm gonna table it because I'd like to hear what Melissa has to say. So
okay, Melissa, you are up next, so let's get you on board. It's good. I'm going on and on, probably putting people to sleep. I don't know. Where's Melissa at? Is she in the attendee column? There she is. All right, Melissa, if you think you're off mute, you can fire away. Oh, she's still connecting to audio. There she is. I'm like throwing her under the bus before she's even on the road. Awesome. Can you hear us? There you go. There you are. Welcome to One-on-One with Coach Blu. Go right ahead. You're live.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you had some thoughts there.
Me? I did. You know what? Lately, just feeling like really disconnected with my family members, like not ones that live here in my home, but like my sister and you know, it could just be they're just busy like within their own life, but just like reaching out to them just seems really difficult.
Mm.
You know, like I don't get like return like text messages or phone calls, and it's tough. It's just you know, like not talking to them anymore like every day, or just having like really um like not wholesome conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that must show how much you care
Just,
about them. I mean, that's pretty
you
wild.
know, like you just can't, I just can't, yeah, like we just don't connect like we used to.
Hmm.
It's just, you
How
know, there's
long has
just
it been like
nothing
that?
there.
Has it been like that for a
Um,
while?
it feels like it's been going on for like a month.
Hmm.
It just, you know, and like I miss them. And I know I can be like kind of overbearing. I can kind of be like, you know, like really into their personal lives. And I try not to be like controlling
Hmm.
and run like their show or, you know, give too much advice. I try to like listen to them and stuff. And I understand like everybody has their own lives and stuff,
Yeah.
but it just seems like we're definitely not on the same wavelength anymore.
Well, you know what though, when things like that start to change and you start having that feeling, you know, it's kind of an interesting principle. I always tell people, especially when you've got some time under your belt, where you start getting that emotional conscience back. It's like if you're having a gut feeling that you need to make that connection, I would say always follow it, because you're feeling something for some reason. And a lot of times we get so out of tune that when we start having, you know, the feeling of being back in tune, we kind of like,
Uh-huh.
oh, we shouldn't bother anybody, or maybe this is just me pushing too hard. But really, it's kind of like if it's done with the concept of like, oh, man, I just really miss you guys and I love you guys and I just want to check in. Even if it's something short, like you said, like no text messages, you know, maybe they're just like, oh, she's okay because, you know, it's Melissa, she's fine. But maybe it's a voice thing, maybe it's a call thing. But if you're feeling that way, I'd say always trust your gut. Don't talk yourself out of it, you know, until they say, Melissa, you can only call, you know, 4 times a week. This 12 times a week is too much. You know, until they tell you that,
Right.
I would say that, you know what, if you're feeling that in your gut and your heart of hearts, because again, you guys are in tune with this kind of stuff. And I'd say if you trust your gut, reach out to them and say, hey, I miss you. Is everything okay? And maybe I'm overthinking this, but I wanted to say hi. Don't think that you're being a bother. Don't think that, because really, you don't know why you're having that. I think it's a very spiritual thing to a certain degree, where you're having that impulse and you're feeling that like desire and that need. But maybe try it, you know, with a phone call instead, and just, you know, hey, I miss you. I want to just leave you a voicemail, because then it shows them that, man, she really cares. But also, it's like it's a good thing to have that, because like I told Allie, I wish that I had family members that cared enough to be like, hey, are you still breathing? You know, because it just never happens. And I know that when I call them, I'm
Right.
just going to get the, you know, the audio finger pointed at me. So, you know, I
Right.
think trust your gut. If you're feeling that way, you know, especially with all the time that was probably missed during the addiction, like just jump on it. Don't suppress that. That's your gut telling you that they might need something. And maybe you know, you don't know. There's something going on. You're in tune with that kind of stuff. You know your family better than anybody. So trust your gut. That's what I say.
And how do you deal with like the rejection? Like when I don't hear back from them and I feel like,
Hmm. Yeah.
you know, and I feel like, God, why are they always so busy? Like, how
Yeah.
dare my own mother not answer her own phone calls from her daughter?
Exactly.
Like, how am I not the most important thing in her life right now?
Exactly. But by saying it like that, like, you know that that's not the
Right.
case, and not taking it
Right.
personal, which isn't easy, because again, it's our own fears kind of starting to kick in, and we make
Right.
the best stories for scenarios that will never happen. It must be because she's been abducted by aliens and being held for ransom in Colombia, and we make all these things up. But that's not, it's further from the truth. It's like, oh, sorry, sweetie, I was in the middle of doing some stuff and I was busy. Or, you know what, I live in a place where you don't get cell phone reception at all. And so everyone's like, dude, are you gone? What's up with you? And I'm like, no, I just live in, like, you know, a place I can't get cell reception. But some people think it's because I'm mad or I'm upset. And I'm like, no, I just don't get your messages until I leave my valley, man. And so we make
Right.
up these stories. Just be careful of the stories that you feed into. Do you know that your mother loves you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. So it's like, just keep repeating that you know certain things, and the unknowns you can kind of fill in the blanks when you get more, you know, more content to kind of fill in the gaps. We do great, especially in addiction. We can make the most horrible stories out of like the most mundane situations, because we have these imaginations that kick in, and so it must be bad. And because we're human, we always default to the bad. So it's got to be the worst of the worst. when really it's because, well, I left my phone in the car when I went to the store and I forgot it, whatever. So try not to take it personal. And then just, when you do make connections, just say, God, man, I've missed you. Like, don't make it a big deal, and just kind of like let it be natural.
Okay. Thank you.
You're a rock star. That's cool. I'm glad that you jumped on and asked that question. That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. That's what we're here for. Athletes, it's been fun. We're going to do this again probably next Wednesday, and this is going to be a one-on-one with Coach Blu. And like I said, it's not just me. I don't know everything, but I think we can work it out together. And if anything else, we get a feel for where everyone's heartbeat's at right now. And as we kind of come out of this COVID epidemic, we're really going to keep this stuff going, because I see the value in it, spending a little bit of time. Marissa's got one more thing. Jeff Smith, I will go into extra innings for Jeff Smith. That's my man. Jeff Smith just had a birthday. Jeff was one of our original athletes from Salt Lake, and him and his wife Callie, they have 2 beautiful kids, and it's absolute rock stars, these 2 gals. The cool thing about the Smith family is they're always out in the mountains. It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Like, you got little babies and stuff. They put them in their backpacks, and they're not afraid to hike them into the woods and have family experiences. One of the neatest things. And Jeff has an amazing sense of humor. It's like being able to be on runs with this guy to keep you rolling. But so we're going to keep doing these kind of things. And I think that as you guys start feeling more comfortable with the platform and stuff, and thank you for being willing to go live, because if you're having these thoughts and these feelings, there's other people out there that are too. They just don't know how to ask. They don't know. They don't dare quite jump on yet, because they don't know what to expect. So thank you for being vulnerable and allowing us to put this out there, because the key is to help people out there start realizing that they're not alone. That on Team Addict to Athlete, you have a whole support system of people that are really ready to stand and to help, get you through that field of battle. And I think that you guys being able to be willing to share yourselves like you have, with some sensitive stuff, it's a big deal. So it doesn't matter if it's about addiction, if it's about a mental health, it doesn't matter what it is. As long as you're willing to kind of put yourself out there, you're going to help a lot of people. And residually, I'm a firm believer that someone that's going to watch this video on YouTube later on is going to get something from it and going to be able to kind of say, hey, you know what, Melissa's right. I have a hard time feeling like my family doesn't care about me, or I'm feeling lost. And just hearing what she's saying is going to be like, okay, well, I guess that's a normal feeling. So realistically, this is a lot for a lot of people, not just for the folks that are on here. It's for people that come up and watch afterwards as well. So yeah, is he jumping on, or what? He might have to wait till next time then. Right? That's it. He's gonna jump ship. He's gonna abandon.
Okay. He said it's gonna be long, so he'll try to jump on the next
one. I love it, Jeff. I'm waiting for you, man. I've been missing the Smith family. All right, athletes, it's been a joy. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for hanging out in the locker room. Sounds kind of weird, but that's where we're at, right? And we're gonna do this next time. So until then, you keep doing what you do and turn your mess into a message.